the most dirty, freaking rotten souls you could think of. They judge people, they look down on people, they think because they walk with God or they've been with God their whole lives that He likes them better. I don't think they read the Bible because He loves all people the same, but it may look in the Bible that He loves like the messed up people more. Honestly, because at least we can admit we're messed up. The religious people just think they're better than the average, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, I'm very ADHD, so I'm gonna read a lot. I just wrote down notes. I'm not gonna read from my phone, but I'm gonna be checking this out a lot. And I wanna talk about the resurrection because this is Easter, Resurrection Day. And you know, whatever you believe, it's all cool. You know, I'm just gonna tell you my story, and then we'll get back to some music, yeah?
Yeah.
Right on, right on, right on. So, yeah, what does the resurrection mean today? This dude died on the cross 2022 years ago. You know? That's true. It is, and people are like, Jesus, how do you know he's the Son of God? Well, we started counting the years after he died over. Like, he started time over. And it's like, that's a pretty good reputation right there, right? It's crazy, but yeah, like, so what does it mean today, this story? Like, people are like, oh, that's an old ancient story, it's some fairy tale, whatever, he died for humanity, da, da. But what does it mean today? So I'm going to tell you my story. There's basically two versions of me. When I think about my life, there's my life before Christ and my life after Christ. Just like Ryan was talking about splitting time in half. He split my life in half. Came into my life, I got suicidal, I was depressed, I was just addicted to everything, and I needed my life to stop one way and start another, and thank God it happened. But growing up, I grew up in Bakersfield, California. Some of you heard my story, some of you haven't, but I'm going to shake it up a little bit different today. And I grew up with the Corn Guys. I think it's a little bit rare that bands grow up as kids together and somehow remain friends and start a band and make it, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. I mean, I love these guys. You know, we've had our issues, me and the guys in Corn, you know, over the years, but we are solid right now, you know? And shout out to Fieldy. Fieldy, I haven't seen him in a bit, but yes. He took some time off to look inside and be with his family, and so we can't wait to see him again, hopefully in the next few months. But growing up, I'm gonna give you Corn fans. I see some Corn shirts out.
Corn
yeah. That's an OG Corn shirt, huh? Yep. So I saw you earlier. So backstory. Growing up as kids, I met Monkey at East Bakersfield High School. I was from the east side, he was from the west side, or Rosedale. We always called him like I'm gonna smile a lot because it's just thinking back to our childhood. But we would say he's from the Rosedale Aliens, the gang. But I don't think there was any such gang, but they just called themselves that. But I remember Monkey came to, when he got bussed over from that side of town, and he rolled up, and he looked like he could be in Bon Jovi or something. He had this flowing freaking hair. And when you're all into heavy metal and whatnot back then, it was like, man, look at that dude there. That guy looks cool. He's probably in a band or something. You know? Because I had my hair, but Monkey had he had like extra cool hair. He had the tight jeans on and whatnot. And he started dating one of my friend's aunts. You know those aunts that are like 1 year older than it was that type of thing. She was in our high school too. So he starts dating her. Her name was Bridget. And the next thing you know, I find out that he's not in a band, but he plays acoustic guitar because he actually chopped a little bit of his finger off on a was a lawnmower or I always get it confused, or a mini bike. Anybody know?
Motorcycle accident.
A what?
Motorcycle accident.
Yeah, okay, it was a mini bike. Something happened and they had to cut the meat off, and so we call his finger Land of the Lost because it's missing the meat on the tip. But anyway, he started playing acoustic guitar so he could get the strength of his finger back. And I sold him his first electric guitar. I sold him a star-shaped PV Mystic guitar, and I jacked up the price on his dad. and because I wanted to get a Charvel, or my dream guitar at that time. So I had to make money. But his dad, man, God rest his soul, his dad was, when we were kids, you go to Monkey's house. We called him James then, not Monkey. But you knock on his door, and his dad's like 6'6". Opens the door. Can James play? No. Scary dude. But as he got older, his heart got softer. So, but yeah, great memories with James. I met Fieldy, the bass player, when junior high. He was just a normal kid. You know, there is a story that is pretty accurate, I think. Fieldy seems to disagree, but Fieldy ran over Jonathan Davis as they were kids on a three-wheeler. Their dads knew each other through music, and to this day, Fieldy denies it, and Jonathan says, yes, you did. You ran me over. You were a bully then. So, but Fieldy was into Duran Duran. No hate on Duran Duran. These dudes did a great cover. Come on, give a shout out to the bands, man.
Yeah.
Shout out to all the music. So, yeah, good job, guys. But I looked at his folder, I was like, look, bro, that's not very manly, Duran Duran. Back then, it was okay to make Duran. So, I said, you gotta get into Ozzy, bro. I had Ozzy all over my peaches and my books and everything, yes. And dude, Ozzy was like my freaking messiah. I had Ozzy posters all over my wall.
I saw them with
and I would just, Randy Rhoads, dude. R.I.P. Randy Rhoads, I can't wait. I hope to see him shred one day in the afterlife.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so Fieldy, I got him into Ozzy. Next thing you know, I converted a dude into metal from Duran Duran. David, met him, our original drummer. Davey's not with us no more, but great memories with him. He actually called Fieldy's house when he was like, we were 15 and he was like 13 or 14. He's like, hey man, hey, my name's David. I heard you looking for a drummer. And so we're like, who's this little kid thinks he could play with us? Next thing you know, we try him out and he's shredding, double bass, can do anything. That's how we met David, and we had a lot of great memories playing in his mom's garage and, you know, rehearsal studios. It's just, you know, is that everybody? Oh, Jonathan Davis. Last but not least, Jonathan Davis as a kid. Many of you don't know, but Jonathan Davis was famous when he was a kid. Anybody know how?
Singing, wasn't he?
Nobody?
Singing.
He was on the show Facts of Life. I'm just joking. Totally joking. He was famous in Bakersfield because there was 3 music stores: Stockdale Music, Front Porch Music, and Rick Davis Music. Jonathan Davis's father owned a music store, Rick Davis Music, and we were like, man, that kid's lucky. His family has a music store. How cool is that? He can play any instrument he wants. But I never hung out with him. He was in a grade behind me, and you know, when you're a kid, you're like, that's a little kid. But I knew of him and probably talked to him a few times from 3rd grade to 8th grade, and then him and Fieldy went to Highland High School. I went to East Bakersfield High School. So that's children of the corn growing up. We grew up as teenagers. Most of the band is in a band together at one point or another. The odd thing is we weren't ever in a band with Jonathan. None of us were in a band with Jonathan. He got into goth really hard growing up, and you know, he was into the like Depeche Mode and all these bands that I really like today, but back then I was like metal. If they didn't go, I didn't want anything to do with it. So, but yeah, he was into that kind of stuff, and
just not the
by the time we were like 18, 19, everybody but Jonathan moved to LA and tried to make it in music. We started a band called Creep, LAPD, and then Creep. And then we kicked out the singer, and we heard about this kid, Jonathan, found him in Bakersfield, talked him into coming up, because he was working in the mortuary business and bombing dead bodies and doing funerals and all that stuff, and he was in a band. And when he joined us, we were like, that's the coolest story ever. Freaking works with dead bodies as a metal singer, right?
Right.
But he loved it. He's one of those weird dudes that had a a desire to work with dead people when he was like 17. Someone's got to do it, right? Someone's got to do that stuff. What do you want? Okay, everybody wave. Film them. Wave. That's going to be a good shot. So, Jonathan Davis, yeah, we get him in the band, we get signed, we record our first album. Dream come true, man. I was living on a couch before we recorded that record. I was waiting for the freaking signatures. Record deals take forever, especially back then. And it's like, you're signed, oh cool, okay, now the lawyers get it. And they're like, you gotta fix this word right here. Lawyers, man, is there any lawyers in the house? Good, go home if you are. I'm just joking, there's good lawyers out there. But so we signed the deal, put our first record, start hitting the road, played with bands like, Marilyn Manson, Danzig, House of Pain, Bad Religion. They sent us with everybody, Megadeth, and everybody. Like the first time we played, it's like the crowds just went. They didn't know what to think. I know that some of you corn fans, like you guys know our sound now, but back then it was so different. And
brand new,
with bagpipes and dreadlocks flying all over the place. Baggy pants, you know what I'm saying? It was
totally
like, we loved hip hop, we loved metal, and we blended them together. We loved alternative music, we loved it all. But so it was a thing where we didn't really fit in, but people started to catch on. We were getting flipped off like in front of Danzig crowd and Megadeth crowd. Ozzy, some of his crowd was just like, who the hell are these dudes, And they would chant, Ozzy, Ozzy. But we just kept going off and doing our best. But so yeah, the first 3 records, we just started growing and growing, and the dream was coming true, man. And it was amazing at that point in life to live your dream and to write songs and to record records and to see that growth happen. And I want to talk about 3 points. Did I say that earlier? 3 points of my life before I met Christ and 3 points after. I'm ADHD and I have to stay focused, so I wrote these 3 points down. And squirrel! The first point, I want to say that what happened in my life, going up that ladder of success, that was awesome, right? But it was a thing where in my life, I just lived in complacency. Didn't really care, didn't really think too much about anything. Not too bad of a guy, just really having a lot of fun. A little too much fun with the legal substances, but it was mainly just beer and alcohol. It wasn't too bad, But complacency, I wrote down the definition. It was a feeling of quiet pleasure or security, often while unaware of some potential danger, defect, or the like. A self-satisfaction or smug satisfaction with an existing situation or condition. Smug meaning showing excessive pride or, being puffed up. The synonyms, I got a kick out of the synonyms. Big head is the first synonym. My name's Head, if you don't know. I'll be here all night. Conceitedness, egotism, pompousness, pridefulness, self-admiration, self-conceit, self-congratulation, self-glory, self-importance, warped self-satisfaction, smugness, swelled head. My favorite one, vaingloriousness. It's just the pride of life. You know what I'm saying? The pride of life. We all fell into it. And we all, we were thankful. We were thankful to have our dreams start to come true. But at the same time, we were like, we are it. Look what we did. Everyone wants to hang out with us. We're selling records. Dude, we opened for Ozzy. That was my dream come true.
I saw it.
I still trip out on that.
I saw it in the Summit.
I love Ozzy. To this day, I love him. Ozzy. He would run down the hallway back in the 90s. He'd just be like, we're like, Ozzy, you rock. Good show. Have a good show, bro. But it was surreal to watch a Crazy Train every night. Flying high again. Oh man, dream come true. But we got into that ego. We fell into every trap you could think of. And the second point I want to make is, after we released "Follow the Leader," our biggest record, a feeling in my memory of what happened was a shift took place, and it's like the atmosphere turned into a feeling of slight fear and anxiety. I think it was like an energy that made me think of like, how are we going to keep this fame going? Are we going to be able to ride another Freak on a Leash? Or, everyone's staring at us. We're so popular now, we can't even go to a restaurant and, without someone interrupting us or something like that. Just, it's like, well, why'd you want to be a musician or a rock star then, right? But, things like that, it's just human nature. You're not ready for when you get famous. You're never ready for it. And it's totally fine, it's cool. But I think people with mental issues, if they're minor, or major, doesn't matter, it's gonna tweak you a little bit. And it tweaked all of us. And it manifested in a couple of the band members being controlling, and it was like not as fun anymore. A couple of them were just like, I don't know, just trying to control everything, control the music, control the business or whatever. And so my friends, while the first two records were climbing up, it was more of a party, like, dude, we grew up together, da da da. Third record, after we got so big, it was like, this guy's this, this guy's like the highest member, this guy is like telling us what to write, and it just wasn't, I was more of like the passive guy, I guess, And so I kind of just wouldn't, because I just don't like confrontation, I don't like to, now I can do it, but back in the day, I grew up with a father that was a little bit angry, and he was mostly all good, but when the anger came, it was a little scary, so I think I shied away from confrontation because of childhood issues or whatnot, and getting bullied too. I got bullied a lot, so like, I guess they were triggers, I was like, hey man, no, it's all good. So I kind of let it go. But the number 3 point I have is like that fear, that the atmosphere shift. It really turned into like a hopelessness my last couple years in Korn, mainly because a lot of you know my story. It's because of my addiction. You put a kid in a candy store every day of the week, every day of the year, and he's going to start to get sick. So we drink alcohol every day, mess around with drugs, start to get sick from it. Depression, you just kind of laugh it away though. It's like if we're hungover or whatever, you wake up, start drinking.
Yep.
You got to drink the hangover away.
Yep.
Right? A lot of you know. And no shame to anybody drinking. Obviously, we're in a bar. We know people drink. I can't drink because I love it.
Yep.
And I can't stop. So, but some people, a lot of my friends, can not ruin their lives. But anyway, side note, ADD. Squirrel. So yeah, I just manifested in hopelessness from my drug addiction, and then all kinds of other issues were going on, like the 9/11 happened around that time, around my drug addiction, and that just like that massive, some of you older people know how that felt like, right? It's like we never got attacked like that. It was like, is this World War III? Is it gonna be on now? That stressed me out and put gloom and doom over my thoughts more. Dimebag Darrell, right in the middle of my meth addiction. I had a 2-year meth addiction. Dimebag Darrell died right in the thick of it. And so I'm spun out, massive mental health disorders from the meth. And then, he gets shot on stage in Texas. R.I.P. Dimebag. And Vinny, love you both. I know.
Yep. Yeah.
It's still heavy, man. It's still heavy. So just really dark 2 years with my drug addiction, man, with all these things. And, the Korns, I feel like our popularity dipped down a little bit at that time. And I don't know, dude. I had a daughter at home, and she needed her parents, and it was just a difficult time because family is the hardest thing to keep together when you're in a band. Especially a marriage, you're not there to be, with your wife, or if it's a woman musician with her husband, it's like there was no FaceTime back then. I couldn't, have that connection. It was all audio. It was all just speaking, man. It was horrible. We didn't have Skype or anything like that. I didn't even have a computer back in the 90s. I didn't have a cell phone. I had to go in the UK and run the streets looking for a freaking payphone to call home.
Oh, wow.
It was crazy. All you kids, that was the old days. It's way different now, but
Pagers.
yeah, I was living in hopelessness. I got suicidal. And I was thinking about things. We really are spiritual beings. If you guys think that we are born on this earth to live a few decades and to die after all the pain we go through, then that's the worst joke I ever freaking heard in my life.
Yeah.
We are spiritual beings. And just when I was living that hopelessness with the addiction, I look back at it now, and the Bible talks about this thing called the spirit of the world, and I felt like I was guided by this spirit of the world that manifested itself in making me feel uneasy. Whether I was sober or on drugs, I just felt uneasy. I didn't feel like life was good. And that sounds crazy because I sold millions of records and we're making good money and everything, but just the core person of who I was, I didn't feel content.
Yep.
And I didn't know why. And you know, it talks about God in the Bible as our Father. He's our Father. It felt like I was being led by like a false father as I look back, you know, like giving me all the things in the world, but never have peace. That peace that Ryan was talking about, or contentment. And it was like being led by a stranger throughout life, you know. And so that's when I got to I was so suicidal, and I love my child more than anything. And I'm like, I'm gonna fight for this. I'm gonna figure out how to change and how to get my life in order. And I don't know how I'm gonna do. I started going to outpatient rehab, started, you know, doing anything I can to get off the drugs and the booze. I couldn't commit to it. And then I got to this place where I ended up in a church. It was a cool church. The pastor wore jeans. He wasn't in this robe going, thee thou thou. It was just a real dude who used to be an alcoholic. And I'm like, I can relate to this dude. And I heard about the story of Jesus and that he came and he died on the cross for our sins and he raised from the dead. And I'm like, so? What does that mean for me?
Yep.
I'm a drug addict now. This guy on a cross, that doesn't mean nothing to me. That's cool, okay. If you believe it, sounds a little weak-minded to me, but go ahead. You know what I'm saying? But then he started talking about the Spirit, and on this Easter day that we're in, the resurrection life of the Spirit gets poured into you, and you get to share that same Spirit, and he will totally transform your life. And I'm in that church going, what? You mean these rehabs, they're not helping me, but you think, I'm like, could this help me? Is this guy freaking just trying to get people's money and trying to tug on their hearts? Is this brainwashing? Is this what brainwashing is? I'm like, well, you can't brainwash me if I pray at home. So he said, Christ will come and live inside of you. And I'm like, I'm gonna bolt the heck out of here. I'm gonna receive Christ. And if this is real, this whatever you're talking about, I'm gonna go home and talk to this Christ and tell him I'm a weak father, and I'm a drug addict, loser, rock star, and if he doesn't give me a new life, I'm gonna kill myself, or whatever. I'm gonna go to another. I was just so confused. I don't know, who knows what I would have done. And so I made a point to myself to be like, look, I have a 5-year-old daughter. I'm not going out like this. I am not gonna go out like this. My daughter is not gonna watch me self-destruct for the most important years of her life, right? I'm like, I'm gonna fight for my family, I'm gonna fight for myself.
Yeah.
She's with me here too today, by the way. Got my kid on Easter.
Awesome.
But I'm like, I ain't going out like that. She ain't gonna watch me do this. It's something rose inside of me, and that's when I asked about this resurrection life. And the first thing, here are the 3 points after I met Christ, right? And I'm gonna say it again, I was a little bit I had my walls up, right? Because I don't want to get brainwashed. You hear about this stuff like, oh, that's just brainwashing. I'm like, they're just trying to get the rock star into their freaking fold so they can, whatever, brag, get more members at their church. So I'm really careful. I'm like, I dip into church like with a hood on in the back, and then I go home. So I want this to be real for myself. So I stepped into this first point, it's humility. And I learned humility basically manifesting as surrender. So I surrendered all that stuff I said earlier, the complacency, the big-headedness, the conceitedness, the egotism, the pompousness, the pridefulness, self-admiration, all that. I surrendered it, and I'm just telling you guys, like, if anybody is looking for a new life, you cannot experience his resurrection that Christ promises he'll give you to experience if you don't kill some of the things in your life with his help and start over. Because resurrection doesn't happen until death happens. And so I killed a bunch of stuff in my life, all that stuff, the drugs. Suddenly, when I said, yes, I'm going to surrender this stuff, suddenly I had the power to lay down the drugs when I tried over and over and over again to quit, and I couldn't quit. Suddenly, I'm able to quit, and I quit the drugs. That's resurrection power right there. If that's not a sign and a wonder, a miracle, I don't know what is. The second point is faith. I just put my faith in God. Faith and trust go hand in hand. Basically, that feeling I felt like being led by a false father, being led throughout life. Now, don't get me wrong. I was led into music, and that's a good thing. And corn is a good thing. But I'm talking about, as I closed my eyes and I was alone, how I felt as a person alone. Because nobody else is inside of here. And back then, I felt like something was off and never felt right. Yep. So, when I got God in my life, suddenly that went away. And I felt like I was being guided by good into healthy living, into, finding love in my heart and receiving God's love so I can pour out the proper love to my daughter.